Hi everyone, my name is Jane Knuckles and I wanted to share my ISM paper with you guys. The why behind my ISM paper was why do many students with dyslexia have a lower self-image and what can we do about that in our classrooms? I have taught at a school who has a curriculum that's designed especially for kids with dyslexia for 7 school years now. And so many of our students, by the time they get to us, are so beaten down, they feel so dumb, and honestly, their families are in crisis. And I just wanted to get a little bit more information. Why do students with dyslexia have such low self-images? And what can we do in our classrooms, not only in a specialized school like my own, but just in a typical classroom setting? A good place to start is talking about what is dyslexia. So, according to the International Dyslexia Association, which is a great resource, dyslexia is a language-based learning disability. Dyslexia doesn't refer to just one specific area of struggle or weakness, but instead can be a cluster of difficulties or struggles. People with dyslexia can have difficulty in many areas of language, some of which are spelling, writing, phonemic awareness, and word pronunciation. Students with dyslexia may have difficulty dividing or segmenting a word into individual sounds. They may have difficulty counting syllables within a sentence or within a word. They may also have difficulty blending sounds together to make a word. All right, let's run through some statistics about dyslexia and who does it affect. Dyslexia affects about 15% of the population, most of which don't even know they have dyslexia or at least don't have an official diagnosis of being dyslexic. Dyslexia does not discriminate and affects people from all different backgrounds. 25 to 40% of students with dyslexia also have ADHD. There's an interesting correlation there. Boys and girls are affected equally. About 1 in every 5 students display symptoms of dyslexia, but could go their whole lives without an official diagnosis. And then while people are never cured of dyslexia, educators who use research-based instruction to provide structure and strategies can help reach their students with learning differences more efficiently. In this next section, I'd like to focus on some common signs you might see in students with dyslexia. Now, the ability to read is a complex one at best, and it requires many connections between the brain, symbolic letters, sounds of phonemes, and then putting that all together to make sense. So for the next part, when I talk about common signs, I've broken it apart into age groups just to make sure that it's divided up a little bit better, but also to show you an overview of how these symptoms kind of all connect together throughout the ages. Let's begin talking about preschool. Preschool is the first academic setting for many students so that they can actually be compared apples to apples with their peers. So some things to look out for might be trouble learning common nursery rhymes such as Jack and Jill or Humpty Dumpty, difficulty learning and remembering the letters in the alphabet, not just being able to sing the song, but being able to say the letters or identifying them if they're not in order. Unable to recognize letters in their own name, so not spelling their own name, but pointing to a letter and saying that's an H or that's an A. And then mispronouncing familiar words, recognizing rhyming patterns so that cat, bat, and at all sound the same. And a common theme will be a family history of reading and or spelling difficulties, as dyslexia often runs in families. Next, we'll talk about students in kindergarten and first grade. So some more things to look out for would be reading errors that show no connections to the sounds of the letters on the page. So if there's a picture of a dog, they might say puppy. Instead of having any connection with the actual letters in dog, they're using their picture clue. If they have difficulty understanding that a word can be broken apart into individual sounds. If they complain about how hard reading is. If, again, they have a history of reading problems in parents or in siblings. If they can't break simple words like CVC words, cat, map, nap, into individual sounds. And then maybe they don't associate letters with sounds, such as the letter B and B as a sound. They don't connect that those two go together. The last group is kind of a large group chunked together, which would be second grade through high school. So some things to look for. I'm not going to read the whole list to you, but you guys could kind of look through it yourself. But if they are very slow to acquire reading skills, when they read, is it slow? Is it awkward? Do they have difficulty breaking apart unfamiliar words? Maybe they don't seem to have a strategy when they come to new words. They often have very low self-confidence and they would avoid reading out loud. They might confuse words like tornado and volcano or lotion and ocean. Again, they might need extra time when responding to questions, but oftentimes look for poor spelling, messy handwriting, and then that low self-esteem is key. Now that we've talked about some common signs or symptoms of dyslexia, let's talk about what we can do for our students who have dyslexia and are in our classroom. For this part, I've broken it into 3 parts: the use of manipulatives, the use of interactive instruction, and the use of student involvement. For the use of manipulatives, students with dyslexia thrive on manipulative-based instruction. They need clear, simple, and explicit instructions. Sometimes we get overly wordy, but they just need clear, explicit instructions and steps. They can become overwhelmed if there's a large amount of materials that they're responsible for, so maybe present the lesson in a small, manageable increments. Sometimes the environmental stimuli can be too distracting, so make sure that what's up there is purposeful and necessary. Also, having realistic expectations, tracking and highlighting tools, using assistive technology. There are so many assistive technologies and programs to help students with learning difficulties and reading difficulties in particular. So kind of explore those and see if your school already utilizes any of those, if there's anything you can do to help students who are struggling to read. Next is the use of interactive instruction. It's important as teachers to be very explicit in our instruction, as it is the key to a successful classroom, especially one with students who have dyslexia. Provide materials that are differentiated. Many of the materials we get in our curriculum aren't as differentiated as they need to be, and we have to adapt. Have daily routines and structure that are established, because it's really important for students. If they know what comes next, that's one small success that they feel. Using graphic organizers, visual and verbal cues, and then constantly reviewing are all crucial components to explicit instruction. The third one is the use of student involvement. Now, this is going to encompass how we can involve our students in our classroom and not make them feel isolated when they can't learn the way others can. Maybe instead of having them answer a question using short answer, they might be able to do multiple choice or underline their answer in a passage, use a highlighter, things like that. Again, the use of a graphic organizer will help students demonstrate their thoughts on paper, but it's really important to remember to model how to use those graphic organizers. Having a planner or an agenda, a specific place where they turn in homework or where homework for the day is displayed. But most importantly, making sure to demonstrate the appropriate use of tools and not just expecting students to know how to use them. Are students with dyslexia disadvantaged? Why do students with dyslexia have such a negative self-image? It's important that we as educators change our way of thinking about students with dyslexia in order to better support their needs within our classrooms. Many students who have come to my classroom have beaten themselves up since they've started school because they feel like they're stupid, they just can't keep up, or they just don't get it. Many families are in crisis. As educators, it's our job to meet them where they are and change what we're doing to meet their needs. Students with dyslexia have many characteristics. Some of them are that they're more curious than average, that they experience thought as a reality, that they perceive multidimensionally using all of their senses, and that they're highly aware of their environment. So these students who come to us struggling and honestly not able to learn on their own without effective and explicit instruction need our help. And unless we change what we're doing in our classroom to meet their needs, then they're going to continue feeling like that. And so to help boost their confidence and kind of combat that low self-image, that negative self-image, we must make sure that our instruction is meeting their needs, meeting our students where they're at. Lastly, I wanted to include 2 helpful resources I found during my research. The first is a book called Overcoming Dyslexia, which is a great read for people who are new to dyslexia or people who are already familiar with it but just want a refresher. And the second is the website for the International Dyslexia Association. It's a great resources for educators, for families, and they even have a really nifty handbook that is a very quick read. Thanks for stopping by my PowerPoint. Please let me know if you have any questions, concerns, or comments, and I hope you have a great day.